So welcome everybody to the new Sonic Field. And this is our virtual series that features work by New College alums and features some of their work that they've done after graduating from New College. I'm Mark Dancigers, and it is my immense pleasure to have with us today Adele Fournet.
Hey.
Adele, yeah. Adele Fournet is a music producer, a video artist, and a scholar who received a PhD from New York University in ethnomusicology. Adele has also become a curator and somebody who celebrates the work of other artists out in the field through her work with an organization called Bit Rosie, which she founded, which features a really incredible web series of artists who are women and gender nonconforming. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on in today's talk. So we're really pleased to have Adele with us here today, and thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us.
Thanks for having me. It's exciting.
So to begin, can you just tell us when you graduated from New College and a little bit about what you've been doing since then?
Yeah, so I graduated from New College in 2009, if I'm not mistaken. Started in 2005. Graduated with a music AOC. And after that, I spent a year actually working on my production skills. So I recorded my first album in a home studio, learned a lot about, continuing my education with music. At New College, I had done a lot of more music theory, composition, writing for orchestral ensembles, small groups, a little bit in electronic music, but hadn't done a lot of recording. And so I was honing my skills with that. And then the year after that, I actually went to Peru to do a Fulbright that I had applied for at New College that grew out of my research, my thesis research on female rock instrumentalists in Florida. And was tied in, New College is so interdisciplinary, so all my interest also in Latin America and Spanish. I was doing a lot of Spanish at New College. So I ended up going to Lima, worked there, lived there for really 2.5 years, just shy of 3 years. First did my project, which was, I ended up doing a project that wasn't my proposal, of course. It was a documentary about an all-female percussion ensemble called Barrio Paula. And I was just getting really more into the music scene there, playing keyboard, writing, ended up starting a band, and then ended up working as a piano teacher, instructor at the university there. But I had an itch to scratch to come back to the United States and still see what was out there. Also just a call back to academia. So I ended up applying to the PhD program in ethnomusicology at NYU. It's actually just the music program because all of their disciplines are together, like composition, musicology, ethnomusicology, music theory, one mega department. So then I ended up coming back here to New York in 2012, and I did my PhD research here, continuing to look at gender and specifically music production and engineering, particularly in popular music, alt pop, the general realm of pop. I really got into the digital humanities side of things too, really wanting, the first video project I did was in Lima, it was the documentary, and then I got more and more into doing music videos, working more with video, experimental video art stuff, more into documentation, and so I decided to do the Bit Rosie web series as an integral component of my dissertation research, which then became this platform and became a digital archive at the NYU Bobst Music Library. So that's what I've been up to, among other things, I guess, as I got married.
Wow, Awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations on all of that.
Thanks. Yeah.
And just so people know too, your work with Bit Rosie, which we are going to link to here on our page,
Great.
is supported by an NYU Center for the Humanities. That's received some support.
Yeah. So basically, I was funding it out of my own stipend money, essentially, like sort of seeing it as part of my research. And then the last year of my studies, was that true? Yeah, 2018, 2019, I got a grant from this organization called Humanities New York, which is actually a organization that is really like tries to support applied humanities work projects. So a big part of my work has always been, how do we bring things outside of academia so that like the discourse of academia is not just talking to itself, but talking to a larger audience. And so this is an organization that's actually national, but they like each state, I think each state, at least New York State, has a branch, and it supports this kind of like public-facing humanities work. And that was partnered with the NYU Center for the Humanities. So it was a cool kind of like double support for the project, my last year at NYU. And but really exciting because it had this very outward looking, so to be with a bunch of other people from the humanities who also had the same mission to kind of bring their work to larger audiences.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and great that you were able to pull together that kind of support for what you do.
Applying to lots of things and getting rejected from a lot of them too. But every once in a while you get something. So you got to keep applying.
That's right. Well, that's so great. And so you've just described a kind of a whirlwind of different types of activity. You mentioned that at New College you had a kind of a grounding in writing notated music. So did you participate in the collaboration with the Sarasota Orchestra? Is that part of what you did when you were here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I did that. I think it was like even starting my second year, I was studying with Professor Steve Miles, who has since retired. And yeah, he asked me if I wanted to write for the string quartet. And then the following year, I think it was a piano quartet. Yeah, it was, but it was very early on. I think it was either my second or third year. And it was very much like getting thrown in, not feeling like I didn't know what I was doing, but just moving forward anyway.
Yeah, that's a fast-paced collaboration.
Yes.
But an in-depth one. I mean, fast-paced in the sense that you're in a professional environment, working with the orchestra musicians and learning about what they do and taking their feedback and incorporating it into your own work. And yeah, it's something that I think is one of the most exciting things that we do.
Totally. Yes.
But you moved from doing that and doing some other projects in composition and you said some electronic music here at New College, and then you kind of jumped into the world of audio production, recording, and then into video work, and then you brought, I think from what I gather, it sounds like you brought that experience into your musicology study, and that has then, as you said, kind of morphed towards sort of public facing digital humanities work. That's just a really, first of all, it's an amazing trajectory.
Thanks.
Yeah, and you've just you've done so many interesting things. If you had to describe what you do right now, how would you describe your work? You're a music producer. You're doing video art. You're working with other organizations besides the one I know that you founded. So
yeah.
How would you describe what it is that you're up to right now?
Yeah, that's interesting. I've been chatting with some people about that. Like, what's the tagline of like my Instagram handle or something? But it's been interesting through COVID because like there's been a big downturn in freelance work. So like after graduating with my PhD, I was doing a lot of freelance work as a recording engineer, a producer, and as a video documentarian. For a lot of live arts, performing arts, concerts and organizations in the city. And since March, a lot of that has just flatlined. And I have hopes that it will come back, and some things are like taking on the live stream, digital aspect of the work. But since then, it's really helped me focus on my own art again and my own recording. So I have now a recording studio in Brooklyn, and that's been a big step for me, like not just working in the home studio setup or in different institutional setups, but actually having a space that feels like, okay, this is a legit small studio space that I can create high quality recordings in. So I would say the recording engineer, producer aspect of the work is really coming to the foreground to me right now. And then the more creative aspect of the video work, or trying to push the video work even more in the alt pop direction. So I think one thing that like goes back even to New College is this collaboration. At least when I was there, there was like, I think it was the first year of like the Crossroads project. I don't know if that's still an ongoing thing, but I played in a band at New College called the Done For, and Steve had this idea of like, well, what if we pair bands from campus with instrumentalists from the Florida West Coast Orchestra? Is that what it's called now?
It probably was at the time. It's now the Sarasota Orchestra.
The Sarasota Orchestra, okay, yeah. So let's pair, these classically trained musicians with some of our music students and bands on campus to create this kind of like inter-genre, interdisciplinary collaboration. And I feel like I've always had that like affinity towards popular music, but also trying to tie in the academic side. So even now, like a lot of the video work I was doing was like for these new music ensembles, but I'm still like trying to push it more in the direction of popular music. So right now I'm working on more collaborations with pop musicians who are wanting to create like multi-camera digital performances for live streaming and stuff like that. So right now, a lot of the work is like centering back on myself. I've done a lot of this, like exploring the work of other artists, doing this whole ethnographic dissertation project about other artists. And now I'm kind of like taking the opportunity in the lull of our global economy to be like, okay, I'm going to focus on my own recording again and focus on projects that I'm really excited about. And then see what happens in 2021.
Yeah. Do you find that your work as a music producer informs how you approach video work and say like working with others? I mean, do you find that you have, do you think about camera work sort of musically, or do you think about sort of like ways of creating certain visual effects? I mean, it's just interesting that you have those sets of expertise.
They're totally related, I think. And I mean, like from a video editor standpoint, anytime, or director and editor standpoint, like if you're working with music and musicians, it's so helpful to be a musician or to be a producer because you know what to focus on. And then when it comes to editing, there's this huge sense of timing and rhythm, and it's very innate for me. Like, I mean, it wasn't always innate. Now it feels more natural to like sort of have this rhythmic approach, I guess, to editing, and then knowing what to focus on when it comes to musical content. And then I also was just realizing recently doing another like demo that when I open my projects in Logic Pro, for example, and open my projects in Adobe Premiere, I have a very similar approach to editing. And it has a lot to do with like color coding, interesting segments and like codifying them almost in this very social science-y way. So I have this way of like culling through material, say like a drummer's performance, and finding like the little loops that I really like, color coding them in a certain way, much in the same way as I would go through a video interview, and cull through like the, sort of thematically related moments and color code them. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Just even like from a software interface standpoint, I have like the same method. I didn't realize that, but
yeah, no, that is fascinating. And working, I mean, media art, right, can mean so many different things, but there are these sets of techniques or just ways of thinking about it that you can bring from one application to another.
Totally. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the work that you submitted for this series, which is called Limas Utópicas.
Limas Utópicas, yep.
Okay. And this is I hesitate actually to describe it because it has a strong collaborative element, workshop element. You had a choreographer who you worked with. So I'm going to turn it over to you to tell our audience a little bit about this work.
Yeah, great. So Limas Utópicas is a piece, I think we call it a site-specific video dance piece that I did in collaboration with my longtime collaborator, Moira Silva, who's from Lima. And we did it in 2019, I believe. Yeah, pre-COVID. And it was, so I'll talk a little bit about our collaboration first. We've been collaborating since like 2011, I would say. And it started out initially, she's an actor and a performance artist and a dancer. And our collaboration started with me kind of creating the music for her live theater performances. And then it evolved where we were actually starting to like create work together a little bit more. The music was becoming more foregrounded. And then it was like, we did our first like fully collaborative piece, I think in 2017, called Calle es una forma. And it was kind of like this long distance because I was in New York, she was in Lima, like sharing of audio. And then it became this installation with projections and stuff like that. But I was doing so much work with video and performance art and live arts documentation that I was like, I really feel like it'd be good if we did like a video dance piece, that the piece itself is the video and not like a site-specific installation, because we were running into this problem of installations when people live in two different countries, hard to organize. And now with COVID, can't even do it. So it felt like, okay, if we create a piece that actually, the final piece is the video, essentially, that has so much more fluidity and like mobility. But we were really interested in working with a group of people that were not necessarily coming from a dance background. So we created a proposal for a workshop at the Spanish Cultural Center in Lima, and they accepted it, gave us some funding to put on this free workshop. It was like a 4-weekend workshop, where we essentially came up with the central concept of utopia, and as like an intervention into the status quo, or like a defiance of the status quo. So that was the container concept, and we let the participants generate all of the material. So essentially we did like movement-based exercises, we did like dialogue-based exercises where people would talk about what is the status quo of their city, and then how would you defy that? Like, how would you intervene in that? So we would have like kind of like these two categories of like what exists and then what intervenes in that, both on a language standpoint, and then we would do that with movement. So even from really basic concepts of like what is the architecture of the space inspire in your body, and then how would you go against that? And then slowly building that up to bring those exercises into public spaces around the cultural center, and having them, through these improvisatory workshops, come up with interventions that were then sort of staged choreographically and filmed and edited together. And then the sonic component kind of came about organically too, because in one of the locations, some of the participants started playing parts of the architecture as their intervention into the sonic landscape of the spaces. And then there was like a final,
that's a really striking moment. And it's so well integrated into the other sound that you have. And I became really curious how you did it. Did you sample them and then edit those sounds back into your audio, or tell us about that?
Yeah, so we sampled it. I met like independently with the people who were more interested in the sonic interventions, and we kind of sampled the actions that they had done in their improvisation. So this piece kind of was like molded improvisation, like bits and pieces come out, and then through our kind of like especially Moira's like choreographic lens kind of, how can we then stage this a little bit more like, not aesthetically, but just like dancerly in a way. So yeah, like with the sound, it was that like sampling and then reintegrating into this kind of rhythm that would go with the rest of the musical rhythm. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. That was it. It's like a Zoom recorder, field recorder.
Yeah.
Nothing fancy.
Well, yeah, I mean, throughout the whole production is really just I think extraordinary.
And 4 weeks too. It was like, cause we premiered it at the end of the 4 weeks. So it was really just like running.
Yeah. And there's these, there are also these really striking overhead shots.
Yeah. Drone shots. Yeah.
Drone shots. Yeah. I mean, that gives this real sense of space and height and yeah.
It was really fun. It was really fun.
Well, and it's just so interesting to see, I guess, something that it seemed like you were doing so many different types of, you were pulling together so many different interests in this project. And I mean, was that satisfying for you to do something where you created the music and you know, you worked on the video side, but it's also this participatory project, the final output of which is going to be, you know, video. So it brings together so many different threads of interest.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah. I mean, well, and I was just trying to tie it back also like New College days. And I feel like the roots of it are all there. I mean, for me, the sort of ethnographic element of allowing the piece to come out of the research itself, or like the sort of grounded theory of like, we're creating a container space, but the material is going to reveal itself through what the participants have to say and what the participants want to communicate. And like, so I think that like that approach to art is very different from the artist vision imposing like, you know, this is what I want to say. This is my voice. Like, I mean, that's fine too. But I think that like we're living in an era where it's interesting to kind of, you know, allow things to evolve with other people's perspectives. So that was really satisfying. And just the sort of improvisatory kind of nature of some of the experimental music stuff that I had been exposed to, like with Pauline Oliveros's work and, you know, instructions that then lead to something that you had no idea what it was going to lead to. So that element was cool. And then, yeah, it was very satisfying. I mean, I think for me to like, because with Moira, we would have this tension too. I mean, it's great to have collaborative partners because you don't always have the same vision. And so her process is extremely like process based and like really going deep into these explorations, improvisations, exercises. And I have a little bit more of like, I want to finish like music video product kind of vibe because I'm like a video editor and I want it to be like timed nicely. And so I think our partnership is good in that way because it's like she brings this sort of like very deep, like embodied research aspect of it. And I bring kind of like a film, like a cinematographer, whatever, view to it. So I like that aspect of our collaboration. And I just like creative collaborations in general. Yeah.
That's great. So
yeah.
No, it is. So, and everybody go and watch this video and use some good headphones or a speaker system because it's all quite lovingly produced. So what is an upcoming project for you right now? Something you're looking forward to?
Well, I have a couple of collaborations that I've worked on as a producer and an engineer, like albums that are coming out. One is an album by an artist named Celeste Krishna. She's a pop rock, a little bit of country, a little bit of, there's a lot going on, but pop artist. And like a synth pop, more like 80s synth pop group called Group Work. and their album is also coming out. So 2 albums coming out in October, and then I'll probably be releasing a new album with my collaborative partner and husband, Felipe, next year. We've been working on a new album of like sort of like 70s inspired soft rock in Spanish. So we're going in this totally new direction. Like we've been more in the indie rock, indie pop direction for a long time, and now we're picking up more on the like soft rock direction.
Awesome.
So that's going to be coming out next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds exciting. And so are you working on that in your new studio space?
Yes, I am. Yep. That's what's up. Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
So our last question, and we've probably touched on this already a little bit, but where can we go to learn more about your work?
Well, a number of places. There's my personal website, which I don't really update it all that often, but there's stuff on it. My name, AdeleFournet.com. And then there's the BitRosie website, bitrosie.com. And then there's the BitRosie Instagram, which it's just at BitRosie. I'm working on streamlining and figuring out how to deal with this platform that I don't particularly like, but well, leave it at that. It does exist, and you can follow it and like see what's going on there.
Yes.
Social media is another topic, another day.
Like and follow to your heart's content.
Yeah, go
Make
for it.
Adele Fournet a part of your social media world.
Mm-hmm. If you want to. Or if you want to reject social media too, that's also great.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, fantastic. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us again. It's been a pleasure presenting some of your work. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.